Hey everyone, so let's jump right into today's explainer, where we're going to break down French grammar and vocabulary simply by following a student named Pauline through a completely typical day. Instead of just memorizing dry lists of words completely out of context, we're going to see how the French language actually lives and breathes, right from the moment the alarm clock rings all the way to when the lights go out.
Here's our roadmap for the journey today. First, mastering the morning routine. Second, telling time. Third, meals and partitives. Fourth, the school schedule. And finally, sequencing the day.
All right, Section 1, Mastering the Morning Routine, Putting Reflexive Verbs into Action.
Pauline's day kicks off at 6:45 a.m. with a very specific action. It says, Elle se lève, she gets up. Now notice that tiny little word se tucked right in the middle? That introduces us to a very special, incredibly common type of French verb that is absolutely essential for describing your daily life. We call this a verb pronominal, or a reflexive verb. It's basically a verb where the action is directed right back to the subject. Think of it like a boomerang. Since getting ready is something you do to yourself, you wake yourself up, you wash yourself, you dress yourself, you literally must use a reflexive pronoun. That just shows that the person doing the action and the person receiving the action are the exact same person.
And you can clearly see how the pronouns shifts depending on exactly who is waking up. Take the verb se réveiller, to wake up. If I wake up, it's je me réveille. If you wake up, tu te réveilles. It changes based on if it's Pauline, elle se réveille, or her parents, ils se réveillent. It's this rhythmic pattern of double pronouns that honestly might feel a bit repetitive at first, but it quickly becomes completely second nature once you hear it enough in context.
And the absolute beauty of this is that we apply this exact same reflexive structure to all kinds of other morning routines. Brushing your teeth, washing your face, getting dressed, or, like we have here in our source material, a man shaving his face. Il se rase. The il is the one doing the shaving, and the se confirms, yup, he's shaving himself.
Moving on to Section 2, Telling Time and Navigating the Clock.
So to map out our daily events in French, expressing the time almost always revolves around the phrase il est, followed by the number, and then the word heures. So if the clock strikes 6, you just simply say, il est 6 heures.
But telling time is really only half the battle, right? You also need to know your relationship to the agreed time. You have to differentiate between arriving early and arriving late. If you beat the clock, you say tu es en avance, you are early. But if the clock beats you, it's tu es en retard, you are late.
Let's actually see this in action. Notice how Marie's arrival time at the cinema completely changes Paul's reaction. They have a date for 5 o'clock. At 4:50, he notes she is en avance. At exactly 5 o'clock, she's à l'heure, right on time. But at 5:20, oh yeah, she is very much en retard. Honestly, tying vocabulary to a little mini narrative like this is hands down the fastest way to lock it into your memory.
All right, Section 3, Meals and Partitives. Let's talk food and quantities.
The French day is beautifully structured around 4 distinct meals. We start with a simple morning coffee or maybe hot chocolate and a croissant for petit déjeuner. At noon, we have déjeuner. In the late afternoon, especially for kids, there's goûter, which is a light snack to kind of hold them over. And finally, the whole day wraps up with dîner in the evening. It's usually a multi-course family meal where everyone just sits down and recounts their day. But to actually talk about eating these foods, we need a specific grammar tool called partitive articles. These are small words used to express an unknown or uncountable quantity of something. It roughly translates to the word some in English. When you have breakfast, you aren't eating all the bread in the world. Actually, scratch that. Maybe you are, but grammatically speaking, you are eating some bread. You're drinking some milk.
You simply match the partitive article to the gender and number of the food noun. You use du for masculine items, de la for feminine, de le if it starts with a vowel, and des if it's plural. But, hey, here is the trick. You need to remember it changes back to the definite articles le, la, les if you are talking about what you love or hate. If you say j'adore les fruits, you love fruit in general, not just some fruit.
Okay, Section 4, the school schedule, or l'emploi du temps.
So, with breakfast done, Pauline heads off to school. A typical weekly schedule is heavily structured with subjects like math, reading, and French across the days of the week, lundi through vendredi. But importantly, notice how the intense academic blocks are broken up by récréation, or recess. This emploi du temps gives us a really authentic glimpse into the daily rhythm of a French student's week.
Which naturally brings us to this question. Qu'est-ce que tu aimes? What is your favorite subject? Using preference verbs like j'aime, for I like, or je déteste, for I hate, how would you describe your own feelings about these subjects? This is exactly where the language stops being abstract and starts being all about you.
And finally, Section 5, sequencing the day and building your story.
Now that we have the verbs, the times, and all that vocabulary, it's time to string it all together. To make your sentences actually flow, you need transition words. Step 1, d'abord, which means first. Step 2 uses words like puis, ensuite, or après, meaning then, next, or after. And Step 3 wraps the whole thing up with enfin, meaning finally. By stacking these transition words in order, you transform a robotic, choppy list of actions into a flowing, totally natural story of your day.
See how Nicole uses these exact sequencing words in her journal entry. She writes, D'abord, je vais dans la salle de bain. First, I go to the bathroom. Ensuite, je m'habille. Next, I get dressed. She's using these words as a bridge to seamlessly move from taking a shower to having breakfast and going to school. It genuinely makes her French sound polished and incredibly natural.
So I'm going to leave you with this challenge straight from our source material. Et toi, décris ta journée. And you, describe your day. Using the reflexive verbs, the meals, the times, and those transition words we unpacked today, how will you narrate your own daily story? Grab a notebook, try writing it out, and you know what? You might just be surprised by how much French you can confidently wield. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep practicing, and I'll catch you next time.